The needle on my fuel gauge had been kissing empty for 11 miles when I saw the sign. Halford's Fuel and Provisions, open 24 hours. The neon hummed against a sky the color of bruised plums, and for a moment I just stared at it through the cracked windshield, certain my mind had finally folded in on itself. 3 weeks since the cities went quiet. 3 weeks of moving only at dusk, sleeping in culverts, drinking rainwater from the hood of my car. And here, at the seam where the highway split between the dead farmland and the Pine Ridge, a gas station glowed like it was still 2019. My name is Eli Marsh. I am 34 years old. I am writing this down because I do not know how many more honest sentences I have left in me. And someone should know what I traded and what I learned, and why the lights never went out at Halford's. I rolled in with the engine off, coasting the last 100 yards on the slope. The tires crunched gravel that had been raked. In a world where the dead walked, someone had taken the time to rake the lot. The pumps were clean. The trash can by the ice freezer had a fresh liner. A hand-painted sign on the door read, in tidy block letters, "No firearms inside, no exceptions. Coffee is free for travelers." I sat in the driver's seat with my hand on the door handle for a full minute. My brother Cal used to say that the difference between a trap and a gift is whether you needed the thing badly enough to stop asking questions. I needed gas. I needed sleep. I needed to hear another human voice that wasn't coming out of a wind-broken radio. I got out. The bell above the door chimed. Actually chimed, a real brass sound, the kind I hadn't heard since my grandmother's hardware store. Behind the counter stood a woman in her 60s, with iron-gray hair pulled into a braid thick as a rope. She was reading a paperback. She did not look up immediately, and that small refusal of urgency unsettled me more than a shotgun would have. "Pumps on 3, she said, turning a page. "Card reader's broken, but I'll trust you for it. Coffee's by the slushy machine. Bathroom keys on the orange lanyard." "Ma'am," I said, and my voice cracked from disuse, "do you know what's happening out there?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were the pale blue of a winter pond, and they held me the way a vet holds a frightened dog, not unkindly, but without any illusions. "I know exactly what's happening out there, son. That's why I'm in here." Her name tag said Mara. There was no last name. Behind her, mounted between the cigarette racks and the lottery display, was a small black and white monitor cycling through 6 camera angles. The pumps, the lot, the road in both directions, the back loading bay, and one shot of the Pine Ridge where the road bent out of sight. On that last camera, just for an instant before the feed rotated away, I saw something move between the trees. Not a person, not exactly. "Pump 3, Mara repeated, and turned another page. I bought $40 of gas I couldn't pay for, a packet of beef jerky, a bottle of aspirin, and a paper cup of black coffee that tasted like it had been brewed that morning by someone who cared. I drank it standing by the window, watching the road I had come down. Nothing followed me. Nothing ever did in the daylight. They preferred the dusk the way I did, which was the worst of all the things I had learned. When I turned back to thank her, Mara had set the book down and was watching me with a careful, measuring stillness. "You'll want to be gone before sundown," she said, "or you'll want to stay the night. There's no third option here." I asked her what she meant, and she answered by walking around the counter and locking the front door. The deadbolt was new brass, heavy, the kind you install when you have stopped pretending the world is going back to normal. She flipped a small sign that read, "Closed for restocking," and gestured for me to follow her behind the counter. "My name is Mara Halford," she said. My husband Dean built this station in 1986. He died 6 years ago. I have run it alone since, and I will run it until I stop. Now, before you decide anything, you should see what I see. The back office was smaller than I expected, lit by a single desk lamp and the cool flicker of a wall of monitors. 12 screens, not 6. The front register only showed the safe-looking ones. Back here, I saw the rest. The Pine Ridge in detail. A drainage culvert behind the property. A clearing about 300 yards into the woods where someone had laid down what looked like a circle of white stones. And in that clearing, in the gray failing light, 2 figures stood perfectly still, facing the station. Not shambling, not twitching, standing. They don't come closer than the stones, Mara said quietly. Not in 6 weeks, not once. What are they? My mouth had gone dry. The coffee taste turned to tin. They used to be people. You know that part. What you may not know is that they are not all the same. She tapped one of the screens. These 2 have been with me since the 2nd week. I think the woman used to deliver propane. The man I don't recognize. They stand there from dusk until first light. They watch the station. They do not attack. They do not leave. I thought about the things I had seen on the highway, the ones that ran, the ones that screamed without breath, the ones that climbed a chain-link fence with their fingernails peeling off and never noticed. That's not how they behave, I said. That's not how the new ones behave, Mara corrected. These are old. 6 weeks is old for them. Something changes. Most burn out, go feral, then go still, then go down. A few don't. A few quiet down instead. They get patient. She looked at me sidelong. I don't know what they're waiting for. I have theories. I do not love any of my theories. I wanted to laugh, and I didn't, because Mara Halford was not the laughing kind. And because the 2 figures in the clearing had not moved a single muscle in the time we had been watching. And stillness in a dead thing is worse than motion. Motion you can shoot. Stillness you have to interpret. Why is the station still open? I asked. Why the lights, the coffee, the sign about firearms? Mara was quiet for a long moment. She reached up and touched the edge of one of the monitors. A small gesture, almost tender, the way you might touch a sleeping child's hair. Because Dean made me promise, she said, that as long as I drew breath, this would be a place where a traveler could stop. He didn't know about any of this, of course. He died before the world did. But a promise doesn't know what year it is. A promise just sits there, waiting to be kept or broken. She turned to face me fully. There is a generator in the cellar. There is a well with a hand pump out back. There is enough canned food to feed 2 people through winter. The door locks from the inside and from the outside. And the outside lock has a code. Only I know. I am telling you all of this because in about 40 minutes, the sun will go down. And you will need to choose. You can take your $40 of gas and go. And I will wish you well. And you will probably die before morning. Or you can stay, and I will tell you the rule of the house, and you will live. I asked her what the rule was. She said, not yet. I stayed. I want to be honest about how that decision was made, because later I tried to tell myself it was strategy, and it wasn't. It was the coffee. It was the brass bell. It was a woman who had locked her door against the world and still left a paper sign saying coffee was free. I stayed because some part of me that had been holding its breath for 3 weeks finally exhaled in that office, and I could not bear the thought of walking back into the dusk and having to hold it again. Mara fed me a bowl of pinto beans with bacon grease stirred in, and a slice of bread she had baked that morning in a propane oven she'd rigged in the back room. I ate sitting on an overturned milk crate. She ate from a chipped blue plate at her desk, watching the monitors the way other women watch television. While we ate, she told me about the others. "You're the 11th, she said, since the first week. 9 kept driving. 1 stayed a night. None of them stayed 2. She did not elaborate on why. I did not yet know to ask. The one who stayed a night, she said, was a man named Trent. He had come in on a motorcycle with a duffel bag of medical supplies he had looted from a veterinary clinic. He had been polite. He had paid in cash, which made her laugh and then made her cry in a way she did not explain to me. He had slept on the cot in the storeroom, and in the morning he had filled his tank and ridden east. And she had watched him on camera 7 until the road bent and took him out of sight. She had not seen him since. "I assume he's dead," she said, with the same flat tone you might use to report the weather. "Most are. The ones who aren't mostly should be." That was when she finally told me the rule. She set her plate down. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. She folded her hands on the desk like a woman about to deliver a verdict. "The rule of this house," she said, "is that you do not go outside between full dark and first light. Not for any reason. Not if you hear a child crying. Not if you hear me crying. Not if you hear your own name called in your mother's voice. You do not open the door. You do not look out the windows for longer than 3 seconds at a stretch. You do not turn off the lights. You do not raise your voice above a normal speaking tone. And you do not, under any circumstance, go down to the cellar after the generator kicks over to night mode. Do you understand me?" I said I did because I thought I did. "Repeat it back." I did. I got every part right except the last one. I said basement. She corrected me. Cellar. She was very particular about the word. Cellars, she said, were older than basements. Cellars had been dug by hand. Cellars remembered being dug. I did not know what to do with a sentence like that, so I just nodded. She nodded back, satisfied. Then she stood, crossed the office, and from a drawer beneath the safe, she pulled out a small leather-bound notebook, very worn, the corners soft from handling. She held it out to me. "Dean's log," she said. "He wrote in it every night for 30 years. Weather, customers, repairs, the price of milk in town. I have kept it up since he passed. Since the world ended, I have written in it differently. If you stay tonight, you should read the last 6 weeks. Skip around, get the shape of it. You'll sleep better knowing, even if you sleep worse." I took the notebook. It was warm from the drawer, which made no sense, because the drawer was cool. Outside, somewhere in the pine ridge, something began to sing. It was not a human sound. It was not quite a wolf. It had the cadence of a hymn that had forgotten its own words. And it lasted maybe 20 seconds, and then it stopped. And the silence afterward was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I read the notebook by the light of a small green-shaded banker's lamp. Mara set up for me on a folding table in the storeroom. The cot was narrow and clean. There was a wool blanket that smelled faintly of cedar. The storeroom door had a deadbolt on the inside, which Mara told me I was welcome to use, and which she also told me would not matter if I broke the rule. Dean Halford had a small, slanted handwriting that leaned to the right, as if the words themselves were walking somewhere. The first entries I flipped to were from years ago, all weather and small commerce. April 4th, 2009. Rain held off. Sold 2 cases of motor oil to the Pemberton boy. He owes $14 till Friday. The man had been meticulous. He had been kind. You could tell, even from receipts. I skipped, as Mara had said. I went to the back of the book, where her handwriting took over. Hers was rounder, blockier, And she had begun by trying to match his format and had gradually given up. Day 1. No date. She had stopped using dates around the 3rd week, I would later notice. Radio reports out of Lincoln say to shelter in place. I have shut the pumps off and turned them on again twice, trying to decide. Dean would have left them on, so I have left them on. Day 3. A family of 4. They did not stop. The woman in the passenger seat saw me through the window and put her hand on the glass. I waved. She did not wave back. I think she could not lift her arm. Day 6. The first one came out of the woods this morning. A boy, maybe 16. He stood at the edge of the lot for 20 minutes, then walked back the way he came. He did not look hungry. He looked lost. I cried for an hour afterward, and then I made biscuits. Day 9. They do not like the lights. I have confirmed this. I left the canopy lights off last night to save fuel, and 3 of them came as close as the second pump. Tonight the lights stay on. The lights stay on forever, if I have to siphon every tank in the county. Day 14. Trent came. He paid in cash. I am writing his name down so that someone, somewhere, remembers it. Trent Bowles. He had a tattoo of a sparrow on his left forearm. He was kind to me. He left at first light. Day 17. I have understood something tonight that I am going to write down, even though I do not want to. The old ones are not staying away because of the lights. The lights are a courtesy I extend to myself. The old ones are staying away because of what is in the cellar. I think they know it is there. I think they are afraid of it, the way a dog is afraid of a snake it cannot see. I stopped reading. I looked up. The storeroom had no windows. The fluorescent tube overhead buzzed at a pitch I had not noticed until that moment, and now could not stop hearing. I turned the page. Day 18. I went down to the cellar this morning, in daylight, with the shotgun. I do this once a week. I check the seals on the door. I check the chain. I do not open it. I have not opened it since Dean died. Dean asked me not to, and I did not understand why then. And I do now, day 22. Another traveler, a woman named Linda. She did not want to stay. She drove east. I watched her on camera 7. She made it to the bend. Day 23. Linda came back. She was different. She is in the clearing now, with the others. She stands the way they stand. I do not know if she remembers being Linda. I think she might. I think that might be worse. I closed the notebook. My hand was shaking. I had not noticed. Somewhere beneath my feet, deep down, something shifted its weight against wood. I did not sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the cot with a wool blanket pulled to my chin, and I listened to the building. Old buildings talk. This one had a vocabulary. The ice machine cycled with a low metallic sigh every 11 minutes. The fluorescent in the storeroom ticked. The refrigeration units hummed at 2 slightly different pitches that together made a third tone I could only hear when I held my breath. And under all of it, every so often, that downward sound. Not a knock, not a scrape, a settling, the way a person shifts in a chair when they have been sitting too long and are not quite ready to stand. Around 3 a.m, by my watch, I heard Mara in the hallway. She walked past the storeroom door without stopping. I heard her go into the front of the station, and I heard her pour coffee, and I heard her sit down at the desk in the office. The monitors made a faint blue glow under the crack of my door. I got up. I do not know exactly why. I think I wanted to not be alone with the sound under the floor. I opened the storeroom door, slowly, quietly, because of the rule about voices. And I padded down the hallway in my socks. Mara was at her desk with her hands wrapped around a mug. She did not turn when I came in. She'd been expecting me, I think. Or she had been expecting someone, and I was simply the someone available. "You read it," she said. "Some of it." "You got to Linda?" "Yes." She nodded. She did not look away from the monitors. On camera 4, the two figures in the clearing were exactly where they had been at dusk. They had not moved. The white stones around them caught the moonlight and looked, from a distance, like teeth. "Linda was a hospice nurse," Mara said. "She told me, before she drove off, that she'd been trying to get back to her mother in Cheyenne. She said her mother was 91 and had Alzheimer's and would not understand what was happening. And she didn't want her to die alone and confused. I told her to stay. I told her she could stay until morning. She said her mother didn't have until morning. She left at sundown." I sat down on the other milk crate. "How long was she gone?" 40 minutes. She didn't even make it to the next county. Whatever got her fast. And whatever got her sent her back." "Sent her back?" Mara finally looked at me. "They don't wander aimlessly, Eli. Not all of them. Some of them go places. Some of them go home. And some of them come here." She gestured to the screen. "Linda was a stranger to this station. She passed through once, for 40 minutes. And now she stands in my clearing every night, from dusk to dawn." "Why?" I did not have an answer. I could feel one trying to form, and I did not want to let it. "I have a theory," Mara said. "I will tell it to you because you read the log, which means you've earned it. And because I'm old. And theories should not die with their owners. My theory is that whatever is in the cellar is calling them. Not all of them. The old ones, the quiet ones, the ones who have started to remember. It is calling them, and they are coming, and they are standing as close as they can bear to stand, like moths to a porch light. But worse, because moths burn up. These ones don't. They just wait. Wait for what? For me to die, she said simply. For me to stop feeding the generator and tending the seals and walking down those steps once a week with a shotgun I do not need but carry anyway. They are waiting for the door to open. I thought about Dean's log. I thought about the chain. I thought about the careful, devotional handwriting of a man who had built a station in 1986 and asked his wife, before he died, never to open a door. "What's down there, Mara?" She smiled. It was a terrible smile. "That," she said, "is the third rule, and I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to tell you." I did not press her. 3 weeks on the road teaches you when to stop asking. Instead, I sat with her until the sky outside the front windows began to turn the color of weak tea. And the first cardinal of the morning landed on the ice freezer and chirped twice. And the two figures in the clearing on camera 4, without any visible signal, without any change in posture I could detect, turned in unison and walked back into the pines. Mara exhaled. It was the first full breath I had seen her take. "Morning shift," she said, almost to herself. She stood. Her knees popped. She crossed to the front door, unlocked the deadbolt, flipped the sign to open, and stood there for a moment in the doorway, looking out at her clean, raked, impossibly ordinary lot. "Come on," she said. "I'll show you the well." The well was behind the station, between the propane cage and a small kitchen garden I had not noticed in the dusk. Tomatoes, late and stubborn. Kale. A row of garlic with the green tops gone brown. Mara had a hand pump rigged to a cast iron spout, and she primed it 3 strokes and let cold water gush into a galvanized bucket. She washed her face. She passed the bucket to me. I washed mine. The water tasted of stone and iron, and something I had not tasted in 3 weeks, which was home. While I drank, she watched the tree line. "I am going to ask you a question," she said, "and I want you to answer it honestly, because the answer is going to determine what happens next." "All right." "Are you running from something, or are you running to something?" I thought about it. I thought about Cal, my brother, who had been in Denver when the cities went quiet, and whose last text to me had been, "Don't come looking, just go." I thought about my apartment in Omaha, the cat I had not been able to find before I left, the houseplants I had watered the morning of the evacuation, as if that gesture meant anything. I thought about the highway behind me and the highway ahead, and how, at some point in the last week, I had stopped being able to tell the difference. I said. "I think I don't have anyone left to go to." She nodded slowly. "That's what I thought. That's why I let you in." "What do you mean?" "The ones running to something, they leave. They have to. I can't keep them. Trent was running to a daughter in Salt Lake. Linda was running to her mother. They go. They die. The ones running from they can stay, if they want to, if they understand what staying costs." She turned the pump handle once more, and a thin, clear ribbon of water spilled over the lip of the bucket and into the dust, and I watched it darken the ground in a perfect circle. "I'm 71 years old, Eli. I have run this station alone for 6 years, and I've run it under siege for 6 weeks, and I'm tired in a way I cannot describe to you. I have been waiting for someone to come who could stay. I think you might be him, but I need you to understand, before you decide, that staying is not the same thing as surviving. Do you understand the difference?" "I'm not sure." "Then you don't. Yet. You will." She picked up the bucket and walked back toward the station, and I followed her. And as I followed her, I glanced once, just once, at the pine ridge. And for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw a third figure standing at the edge of the trees in full daylight, watching us. When I looked again, the trees were empty, and a crow lifted out of them, calling once, harsh and final. I did not tell Mara. I have thought many times since about why I did not tell her. The honest answer is that I was already beginning to keep secrets from her, the way you begin to keep secrets from anyone you have decided to love. I stayed a second night, and a third. And on the fourth morning, without any conversation about it, I found myself sweeping the lot with a push broom Mara handed me, as if I had always been the one to do it. We fell into a rhythm. She ran the front, I ran the back. I learned the generator, a big diesel Kohler in a cinder block shed 20 feet from the main building, fed by an underground tank Dean had buried in 1991 and topped off every spring of his life. I learned the night mode switch, which throttled the generator down to feed only the canopy lights, the front sign, and the monitors. Everything else ran on battery from sundown to sunup. The fridge ran on propane. The well ran on muscle. The whole station was a small, stubborn machine that Dean Halford had built, without knowing it, for the end of the world. A traveler came on the 6th day. A man in a pickup truck with a wife and a little girl in the cab and a mattress strapped to the bed. They were heading for a cousin's farm in Montana. They did not want to stop. They wanted gas, and they wanted to be gone. Mara waved them through the pumps. The little girl pressed her face to the window and waved at me. I waved back. She had a stuffed rabbit. The rabbit was missing an ear. When they pulled out, Mara stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and watched them until Camera 7 took them past the bend. Then she went inside and sat down at the desk and did not move for 20 minutes. "You all right?" I asked. Yes, just counting. Counting what? How many of them I expect to see again. I did not ask her what she meant. I had read enough of the log by then. That night, the singing came back. Not from the pine ridge this time. From the south. From the direction of the cornfields. It was the same hymn without words, but there were more voices in it. Maybe 4, maybe 5. They were not in tune with each other, which was somehow worse than if they had been. They stopped after a minute. Mara wrote something in the log. She did not show me what. On the 7th day, she took me down to the cellar. We went in daylight. She made me eat a full breakfast, first eggs from a cooler, toast, a cup of coffee I did not want, and she made me put on a clean shirt of Dean's, which fit me almost exactly, and which I tried not to think about. She carried the shotgun. I carried a battery lantern and a ring of keys. The cellar door was in the back room behind a curtain I'd assumed covered a utility closet. It was solid oak, banded with iron, set flush into the concrete floor at a 45-degree angle. 3 locks, a padlock, a deadbolt, and a sliding bar that had been welded to a steel plate. A chain ran from a ring in the floor to a ring on the door, and the chain had been wrapped 4 times and secured with a 4th lock I had not initially seen. Dean built the station in 1986, Mara said, kneeling and beginning to work the locks. But the cellar was already here. The cellar was here when he bought the land. The previous owner, a man named Aldous Crail, had dug it in 1952. Dean never knew exactly why. There were rumors. Crail was a strange man, lived alone, buried his dogs in a circle. You will have seen the stones in the clearing. I had. I felt the breakfast settle wrong in my stomach. The stones were Crail's, Mara said. He moved them once a year. We don't know why. When Dean bought the property, he left the stones alone. He said the land had its arrangements, and it wasn't his place to rearrange them. The last lock clicked open. She did not lift the door yet. She knelt with her hand flat against the wood and her head bowed, the way a woman might pray, or the way a woman might apologize. "Listen carefully," she said. "I am only going to open this once." She lifted the door. The hinges had been oiled. They made no sound at all, which was the first wrong thing, because hinges that old should have groaned. And these did not, which meant Mara oiled them, which meant she opened this door more than she had told me. The stairs went down farther than I expected. 22 steps, hand-cut, the wood gone almost black with age. The lantern light only reached about halfway. Below that, the dark was the color of old well water. Mara did not start down. She stood at the top with the shotgun cradled and looked at me sidelong. "I want you to understand something before you see this," she said. "What is down there is not what killed the world. It is older than what killed the world. It has been down there since before Dean and I met. Crail put it there. Crail knew what he was doing in his way. He fed it for 30 years. Fed it what? Time, she said. Attention, routine. The same things you feed any household god. I started to ask another question. She held up her hand. Walk behind me. Do not step off the staircase. Do not speak once we are below the 3rd step. Do not, under any circumstance, shine your lantern into the far corner. Look at the near wall where the seal is. That is what we are here to check. That is all we are here for. Do you understand? I nodded. I could not have spoken if I had wanted to. My throat had closed around something dry. We went down. The cellar was bigger than the station above it. I understood that immediately, in the way you understand the size of a cathedral before your eyes can confirm it by the way sound behaves. My breath did not echo. It traveled. The walls were stone, fitted together without mortar, the kind of work that had not been done by any mason of the 1950s. Crail had not built this. Crail had found it and dug down to it and called it his. The air was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. It was cold the way an empty room is cold after a long argument. Mara stopped on the bottom step and raised her lantern to the near wall. I forced myself to look only there. The seal was a slab of pale stone, roughly oval, set into the wall at chest height. It was carved with concentric rings, and inside the innermost ring, there was a single character I did not recognize, in a script I had never seen. And I knew without being told that I should not try to learn it. Around the seal, pressed into the joint between the slab and the wall, was a paste the color of dried blood and the consistency of clay. Mara reached into her coat pocket and took out a small jar. She unscrewed the lid. The paste inside was fresh and red and smelled faintly of iron and rosemary. She began, methodically, to press fresh paste into the cracks around the seal. "Once a week," she said quietly. "Dean did it for 30 years. I have done it for 6. It is the only thing keeping the seal whole." "What's behind the seal?" She did not answer for a long time. She worked the paste with her thumb, smoothing it, the way a potter finishes a rim. "A door," she said finally. "Behind the door, a room. In the room, something that was very hungry once and is now very patient. I have never seen it. Crail saw it. Dean saw it once, by accident, the year before he died. He did not describe it to me. He only said after that he understood now why Crail fed it. He said the alternative was worse. The alternative? Letting it get hungry again. I did not look at the far corner. I wanted on record that I did not look. But while she was finishing the seal, I felt something in the far corner look at me. And I felt it the way you feel a hand on the back of your neck in a dark room when you know you are alone. We went back up the stairs. We locked the door. We did not speak for the rest of the day. 3 days passed. I worked, Mara worked. We did not discuss the cellar. We discussed the weather and the diesel level and a coyote that had been getting into the garden and whether the kale would survive a frost. We ate dinner together at the desk. I read more of Dean's log, but I skipped Mara's later entries now. I read only Dean's. I read about the price of milk in 1994 and a customer named Earl who had a habit of paying for gas in pennies. And I let those small old kindnesses lay over the cellar like a clean sheet over a stain. On the 4th day, a car pulled in. I will remember for the rest of my life. It was a green station wagon, maybe 20 years old, with a roof rack tied down with bungee cords and the back windows blacked out with garbage bags. A man got out, mid-40s, lean. He moved like someone who had been moving for a long time and had learned not to waste motion. He was wearing a wedding ring, which I noticed immediately because I'd not seen one in 3 weeks. He came to the door. Mara was at the counter. I was restocking the cooler. He said, "Are you Mara Halford?" Mara went very still. I felt it from across the room. "I am," she said. "My name is Samuel Crail," he said. "Aldous Crail was my grandfather. I have been looking for this station for 11 days. The cooler door slipped from my hand and swung shut with a soft thud. Neither of them turned. "He told me about this place," Samuel went on. His voice was even. He had practiced this sentence. "He told my father, and my father told me, and we agreed, the 3 of us, that if anything ever happened, if the world ever turned in the direction we were afraid of, that one of us would come here. To help, to take over if needed. To continue the work." Mara did not move. "My father is dead," Samuel said. "He died last year. Before all this, my grandfather has been dead since I was 9. I am the last one. I have been driving from Pennsylvania. I'm very tired, Mrs. Halford, and I'm asking you please to let me in." Mara looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at me. Then she looked back at him. "Show me the mark," she said. Samuel Crail rolled up his left sleeve. On the inside of his forearm, just below the elbow, there was a small tattoo, not a sparrow, like Trent's, but a circle of dots arranged exactly like the white stones in the clearing. 7 dots. He held it up to the light. Mara closed her eyes. She breathed out. She unlocked the door. I do not know how to describe what I felt in that moment. Relief, that an heir had come and Mara might rest. Suspicion, because something about Samuel Crail's stillness reminded me of the things in the clearing. And under both of those, a third thing I did not name until much later: jealousy. Because I had been the one she had been about to choose, and now I would not be chosen. And I had not realized until that instant how much I had wanted to be. Samuel came inside. Mara made him coffee. She did not offer him the storeroom cot. She offered him the office couch, which I had not even known folded out. She offered it to him without asking me, and I understood, without her saying so, that the hierarchy of the house had just rearranged itself, and I was now in second place. That night, Samuel sat with Mara at the desk, and they spoke in low voices for hours. I lay on my cot and tried to read Dean's log and could not focus on the words. Around midnight, I heard Mara laugh, a real laugh, the first I had heard from her, and the sound traveled down the hallway and under my door and settled in my chest like a stone. I did not sleep. I listened to the building, the ice machine, the fluorescent tube. And below all of it, deep in the cellar, the soft, settling sound of something turning over in its bed, attentive now, listening to the new voice in the house. I want to say I was suspicious of Samuel Crail from the start, but the truth is more complicated, and I'm trying to tell the truth. For the first 2 days he was there, Samuel was unfailingly kind. He brought his own food, canned goods, neatly labeled, a small wheel of hard cheese wrapped in wax that he insisted on sharing. He did dishes. He swept the lot before I could get to it, and apologized when he realized he had taken my chore. He called Mara ma'am, and he called me Mr. Marsh, until I asked him to stop, and then he called me Eli, with a small, careful smile. He had been a high school history teacher before. He had a wife named Joelle who had died in the first week, in a hospital in Harrisburg, of something that had nothing to do with the dead. He spoke about her once, briefly, and then did not speak about her again. He knew the cellar. Mara took him down on his second morning without me, without explanation, and they were gone for over an hour. When they came back, Mara was paler than I had ever seen her, and Samuel's hands were stained red to the wrist with the paste, and they did not speak to me for the rest of the morning. That afternoon, while Samuel was outside checking the generator, Mara found me in the storeroom. "He knows the words," she said. "What words?" "The ones Dean never knew. The ones Crail wrote in a book that the family kept. Samuel has the book. He showed me. There are things in it that—" She stopped. She looked at her hands. "Eli, I've been doing this wrong. I've been holding the seal closed. Crail's people, they don't hold it closed. They negotiate with it. They keep it satisfied. There is a difference. I have been keeping a prisoner. He is going to keep a tenant. Is that better?" She looked at me for a long moment. Her pale winter pond eyes were tired in a new way. "I do not know," she said. but it is what Dean would have wanted. Dean wanted the station kept open. Dean wanted travelers safe. If Samuel can do it without me having to walk down those stairs every week, Eli, I am 71. I am so tired. You don't know how tired. I told her I understood. I think I even meant it. That night, Samuel cooked dinner. He made a stew out of his canned goods and some of Mara's garlic. And it was, genuinely, the best meal I had eaten since the world ended. We ate at the desk. The monitors flickered. The figures in the clearing, 3 of them now, a new one had joined the previous 2 on Samuel's first night, stood facing the station with what I was beginning to read as attention. Samuel looked up at camera 4 during dinner. He looked for a long time. "They've gotten closer," he said quietly. Mara nodded. 2 feet since you arrived. I measured against the fence post. That's expected. They can feel the change in the seal. It'll settle in a week or 2. And then? Then they go home, Samuel said. Most of them. Some stay. The ones who stay become guardians. Crail wrote about it. They watch the perimeter for us. They keep the others away. I set my spoon down. They watch the perimeter for us? Samuel turned to me with that same careful smile. Eli, the thing in the cellar has been here longer than any of us. It has rules. It has, yes, I'll use the word preferences. My grandfather understood those preferences. He worked with them. The result was that for 30 years, this corner of Nebraska had the lowest violent crime rate in the state, the lowest accident rate on the highway. Drought years that should have killed every farm within 50 miles spared the ones nearest the station. My grandfather was not a monster. He was a steward. And what does the thing in the cellar get in exchange? Samuel's smile did not change, but something behind his eyes did. Company, he said, mostly. It likes to be visited. I did not sleep that night either. I lay on the cot and I went through every conversation I had had with Mara since I arrived. And I tried to find the place where the ground had shifted. And I could not. The ground had shifted, but it had shifted slowly, the way ground does. The way a sinkhole opens first a hairline crack you ignore for years, then a dip in the lawn, and then one morning, the porch is gone. Around 2 a.m, I heard Samuel in the hallway. He walked past the storeroom and into the back room. I heard the curtain move. I heard, very faintly, the sound of locks being undone. 1, 2, 3, 4. I heard the cellar door lift on its silent hinges. I lay perfectly still. I counted. He was down there for 41 minutes. I counted because counting was the only thing I could do. I counted seconds, and then I counted my own breaths, and then I counted the cycles of the ice machine. And at minute 41, I heard the cellar door close and the locks reset, all 4 of them, and I heard Samuel walk back down the hallway. He paused outside my door. I do not know how long. Long enough that I held my breath until my ribs ached. Then he walked on, into the office, and I heard the office couch creak as he lay down. I waited until first light. Then I got up. I put on Dean's shirt and my own boots, and I went into the office. Samuel was asleep, or appeared to be. Mara was already at her desk, watching the monitors. The clearing was empty. The 3 figures had gone back into the pines. Mara, I whispered, I need to talk to you, outside. She looked at Samuel. She looked at me. She got up without a word and followed me out to the well. I told her what I had heard. The 4 locks, the 41 minutes, the pause outside my door. I told her about the look behind Samuel's eyes when he said the word company. I told her I did not trust him. I told her I thought he was lying about something, though I could not have said what, and that I thought she should not let him go down to the cellar alone again, ever. She listened. She watched the tree line while I talked, which was a habit she had, and which I had begun to share. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Eli," she said finally, "I want you to consider the possibility that you are jealous." The word landed like a slap. I felt my face go hot. "That isn't? I am not accusing you. I am asking you to consider it, honestly, because I have considered it and I am not sure. And I cannot afford, at this point in my life, to mistake jealousy for warning. Do you understand the difference?" I did not answer. "Samuel knows things Dean did not know," she said. "Samuel can do things I cannot do. I have perhaps 6 months of strength left in me, Eli. Maybe a year. I had to hand this over to someone. Samuel came. You did not come for this. You came for gas. There is no shame in that. But there is a difference. Mara, let me finish." She turned to face me fully. The morning light caught the silver in her braid. "If you want to leave, I will fill your tank, and I will give you food for a week, and I will wish you well. If you want to stay, you're welcome, and there is work, and there will always be coffee. But you must stop watching Samuel the way you have been watching him. I cannot run this house with 2 men in it watching each other. Do you understand?" I said I did. I did not know if I did. She put her hand on my arm, briefly. It was the only time she ever touched me. "I am sorry," she said, "about the choosing. I should have been clearer with you. I think I was lonely, and I think I let you believe something, and that was unkind." She walked back into the station. I stayed by the well for a long time, looking at the pines. I almost left that morning. I had my hand on the car door. I had filled my tank. Mara had packed me a paper bag of food bread, jerky, a jar of pickled beets, an apple from a tree she had not told me about. The keys were in the ignition. The sun was up. The road was empty in both directions. I had nowhere to be, but I had everywhere to not be. And that has always been enough of a reason for me. What stopped me was the little girl with the rabbit. The pickup truck came back. Not the family of 4, only the truck and only the father driving alone. The mattress was gone from the bed. The passenger seat was empty. He pulled up to pump 3. He did not get out. He sat in the cab with his hands on the wheel and stared at the dashboard. I walked over. Mara was inside with Samuel. I do not think they saw me. "Sir," I said. I tapped lightly on his window. He flinched as if I had struck him. He rolled it down. His eyes were not right. They were not infected. They were the eyes of a man who had seen the floor of his own soul and found it lower than he had thought. "They got Annie," he said. He did not look at me. We stopped for the night. I thought a barn was safe. There was a hole in the loft I didn't see. They came up through the floor. I got Marie out. Annie was already. He stopped. His hands tightened on the wheel until I heard the leather creak. Marie wouldn't get in the truck without her, so I had to. I had to put Marie in the truck. I had to drive. She was screaming for Annie. She was screaming the whole way to the next town. She stopped screaming about 2 miles back. I think she is asleep. I left her at a church. There were people. There were good people. I asked them to keep her. I am going back. I am going back for Annie. Or for what is. I am going back. "Sir," I said, "you cannot." "Sir, please." "I have to," he said. She had the rabbit. The rabbit was hers. Her grandmother made it. The grandmother is dead too. There is no one left who knew her except the rabbit. Do you understand? I have to go back. I did understand. May God forgive me for understanding. I stood beside that truck and I understood exactly, and I did not stop him. He drove away. I watched him on camera 7 from the office doorway. Mara and Samuel were at the desk. Neither of them spoke. The truck made the bend and was gone, and Mara closed her eyes. He'll be back by sundown, Samuel said quietly. Whatever's left of him. He'll stand in the clearing, Mara said. Yes. He'll watch this station every night for the rest of his time. Yes. And what does the thing in the cellar get out of that? Samuel did not answer. I turned around and walked back to my car. I sat in the driver's seat. The keys were still in the ignition. The bag of food was on the passenger seat. The apple had rolled into the footwell. I sat there for an hour. I am writing this down because I wanted on record that I had the chance to leave twice, and I did not take it. And the reason I did not take it was not Mara, and it was not Samuel, and it was not even fear of the road. The reason I did not take it was that I had finally understood what the thing in the cellar got out of all of it. It got witnessing. It got Mara writing in her log. It got Dean writing in his. It got Crail's 7 white stones and Samuel's careful red paste, and a hospice nurse standing in a clearing thinking, perhaps, about her mother in Cheyenne. It got attention, and I had been giving it mine, freely, for 8 days. I got out of the car. I went back inside. I have to write this part carefully, because it is the part I understand least, and the part that matters most. The change in Mara happened over 4 days. I want to be clear that it was not sudden, and it was not, at first, alarming. She began to sleep more. She had always been an early riser. Now she slept until 8, then 9, then 10. She let Samuel make breakfast. She let Samuel work the register. She let Samuel walk the perimeter at dusk with a flashlight, which had always been her job, and which I had assumed she would never give up. Her hands developed a tremor, just the left one, just when she held a coffee cup. She noticed me noticing the first time, and she set the cup down and laughed and said, "Old age, Eli. It comes for everyone. Mine is just late." But it was not late. I had known her for over a week. I had watched her lift a 50-pound bag of dog food, kept for a dog that had died 2 years before Dean, without effort. I had watched her work the well pump for 10 minutes straight, with one hand while talking. The tremor was not age. The tremor was something else. On the 3rd day, I caught Samuel in the back room. He was kneeling by the cellar door. He was not opening it. He was speaking to it. I do not know what language he was speaking. It was not English, and it was not any of the languages I had ever heard on a television. It was soft and rhythmic, and it had the cadence of the hymn without words that came from the pines at night. And when I stepped into the doorway, he stopped instantly and stood up. "Eli," he said pleasantly. "I didn't hear you." "What were you doing?" "Maintenance. There are things you say to a seal, just like there are things you say to a sourdough starter. It's not magic. It's husbandry." "Mara is sick." He looked at me for a long moment. The careful smile returned. It had been returning more often, and it had been reaching less and less of his face. "Mara is 71 years old," he said. "She has been holding the seal alone for 6 years and under siege for 6 weeks. She is allowed to be tired. That isn't tired. Eli." He stepped closer. He was not threatening. He was something worse than threatening. He was concerned. I want you to listen to me, because I think you are a good man, and I do not want you to make a mistake. The thing in the cellar does not take. It is given to. There is a difference. Mara has given, willingly, for many years. She is approaching the end of her giving. That is a sacred thing. It is not a sickness. It is a completion. When she is done, she will rest. She has earned rest. Do you understand? What does it take from her, Samuel? He smiled. He really smiled then, for the first time. It was the smile of a man who had been waiting to be asked the right question, and was relieved to finally hear it. Time, he said. Just time. The same thing it always takes. She has been giving it a little, every week, for 6 years. Now she is giving it a little more. Soon she will give it the rest. That is the bargain. That has always been the bargain. My grandfather gave it 30 years. My father gave it nothing because he refused, and he died unhappy and afraid. I am here to give it the rest of mine when my turn comes. But Mara comes first. She is owed her completion. And the travelers? The people in the clearing? Linda, the man with the daughter? Witnesses, he said. Every God requires them. That is not cruelty, Eli. That is theology. I looked at him. I really looked. And I understood finally that Samuel Crail was not lying to me. He believed everything he was saying. He believed it the way his grandfather had believed it, and the way his father had refused to believe it. And the difference between belief and refusal in that family was the difference between a long, quiet life and a short, frightened one. I also understood that he intended to let Mara die, soon, and that he intended to do nothing to stop it. That night, I went to Mara. I waited until Samuel was asleep on the office couch. He slept early now, deeply, the sleep of a man who was at peace with his work. And I knocked softly on the door of the small apartment behind the station where Mara lived, and which I had never been inside. She opened the door in a flannel robe. Her braid was undone. Her hair fell to her waist, gray and surprisingly soft. She looked for a moment like a much younger woman startled out of a much younger sleep. Then she saw my face, and she stepped back, and she let me in. The apartment was 2 small rooms, a bed, a reading chair, a photograph of Dean on the dresser, a tall, thin man with a kind, worried mouth, a Bible on the nightstand, well thumbed, with a ribbon at Ecclesiastes. I know, she said before I could speak. I have known for 2 days. Then why? Because I'm tired, Eli. Because what Samuel is offering is what I asked God for, every night for 6 years. And I do not get to be angry that the answer came in a shape I do not love. Mara, he is letting it eat you. It has been eating me since Dean died. Samuel is only speeding it up. A little. By how much, I do not even know. Maybe months, maybe a year. Eli, the alternative was that I died alone down those stairs one winter, and the seal broke, and everything Crail put in that hole came out. Samuel is preventing that. I am paying the cost. It is a fair trade. It is not a fair trade if you are paying it for him. She smiled. It was the same terrible smile she had given me on the first night. Who else would I pay it for? Dean is dead. I have no children. The world has ended. You are running from Eli, not to, and that means you cannot stay. I have known that since the first morning. You will leave. You will leave because you have to. And when you leave, I will be alone again, and the cellar will still be there. And someone has to do this work. Samuel will do it. That is what I want. That is what I'm choosing. I sat down on the edge of her bed. I did not know I was going to cry until I was crying. I had not cried in 3 weeks. I had not cried for Cal, or for my apartment, or for the cat. I cried in that small room for a woman I'd known for 9 days, and for a man named Dean Halford I had never met, and for the price of milk in 1994. Mara sat down next to me. She put her hand on the back of my neck. It was the second time she touched me, and the last. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "There is one thing I want from you. Then I want you to go. Anything. I want you to take Dean's log, all of it, every volume. There are 11 in a box under my bed. I want you to take them with you, and I want you to keep them, and I want you to read them when you're old. And I want you to remember that there was a man in Nebraska who wrote down the price of milk every day of his life because he believed that small kindnesses were the only honest theology. Will you do that?" "Yes." "Good. Now go pack your car, quietly. Don't wake Samuel. Drive west. Do not look back at the station after the bend. Do not stop until you're at least 400 miles away. Do you understand?" "Yes." "And Eli?" She squeezed the back of my neck once. "Find someone to run to. Anyone. A stranger, a dog, a garden. It does not matter who. Just find them. Because from will to kill you, and not in the way you think." I packed the car. I took the 11 volumes. Mara stood in the doorway of her apartment and watched me load them. She did not come outside. She did not say goodbye. She closed her door before I had finished, and I heard the small, soft click of her lock. And I understood that she had given me the only farewell she could afford to give. I drove out at 3 in the morning. The canopy lights were still on. The sign still glowed. In the rear-view mirror, just before the bend, I saw a figure standing in the clearing. Only one. It was small. It was holding something in its arms. I could not see what. I did not look again. I am writing this in a farmhouse in Oregon, 4 years later. I run to something now. Her name is June. She had a garden when I found her, and a stubborn dog, and a younger brother who needed someone to teach him to drive. I am not the man Mara hoped I would become, but I am closer to him than I was, and she would, I think, accept the approximation. The 11 volumes of Dean's log sit on a shelf above my desk. I read 1 page a night, at random. Last night, it was March 12th, 1997. Dean sold a fan belt to a woman named Edith. He noted that her left headlight was out and that he had fixed it for free. He did not write down why. Sometimes at dusk, I think about the station. I imagine the lights still on. I imagine Samuel Crail at the desk, older now, alone, tending to something patient in the dark beneath him. I do not know if Mara found her completion gently. I hope she did. I keep my porch light on all night. It is a small thing. It is the only theology I have left.